Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack exactly how professional investigators turn everyday search engines into wildly powerful open-source intelligence tools. Let's be honest, if you've ever felt like you're barely scratching the surface of what the internet can actually tell you, well, you're absolutely right. Today, we're going to change that.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the very first principles of how search mechanics actually work, and then scale all the way up to advanced techniques for filtering out the internet's noise. So we'll hit the basics, size up the heavyweight giants, explore privacy engines, travel through regional tools, and finally, dig into those advanced tactics.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Search Engine Basics, Demystifying the Magic. Because honestly, before we can truly master these tools, we need to understand exactly what it is we're working with.
Okay, so what exactly are we doing here? We are practicing open source intelligence, or OSINT for short. Basically, this is the structured, deliberate process of gathering and analyzing publicly available data to find actionable intelligence. And here is the absolutely crucial part. This means investigating a target, whether you're doing cybersecurity, fraud detection, or investigative journalism, without ever revealing your intent or introducing risk to yourself. Staying stealthy and safe, that's exactly what separates a true professional investigator from a casual Googler.
Now, when we look at the broader OSINT workflow, search engines fit perfectly right into the crucial collection phase. They are, without a doubt, your primary gateway to massive volumes of public data. But to use them like a pro, you have to realize that a search engine isn't magic. It's just a highly sophisticated piece of software.
So here is a massive misconception we need to clear up right away. Search engines do not search the live internet. I know, sounds crazy, but the internet is simply way too vast for that. Instead, they search their own stored databases, which we call indexes. This happens in 3 specific steps. Step 1 is crawling, where these automated bots basically wander the web discovering new content. Step 2 is indexing, where all that discovered data is meticulously stored and organized. And Step 3 is ranking or retrieval, where algorithms decide exactly what you're going to see when you hit enter on a keyword. Because the web is so huge, literally no single search engine has indexed the entire thing. They all have completely different indexes and totally unique ranking algorithms. Moving into Section 2, the giants. Google and Bing, the heavyweights of the search world. Now that our foundation is set, let's take a look at the massive sledgehammers in our toolkit. When you look at the sheer scale of the market, Google absolutely dominates. We're talking nearly 90% of the global share, which obviously gives it massive crawling power. But a novice investigator might look at Bing, sitting at just under 4%, and completely ignore it. A professional knows better. Both platforms have incredibly vast crawling capabilities, but remember what we just talked about? They index and rank that content entirely differently. Also, it's super important to keep in mind that both of these giants track user data, which is something we always need to be aware of during a sensitive investigation.
And this brings us to a core strategy for this entire explainer. A pro never ever relies on just one tool. Google is, for sure, unmatched for general investigations. It's brilliant for scouring academic papers on Google Scholar, navigating maps, or retrieving old cached historical results. But Bing is a powerhouse for visual search and exceptional video retrieval. Seriously, running the exact same query on both will very often yield entirely different, completely unique pieces of intelligence.
All right, Section 3, Privacy and Independent Search, the lockpicks of the toolkit. If Google and Bing are heavyweights providing the brute force, we now need to shift our focus to precision. Let's look at our specialized lockpicks.
Think about this. When you search on Google, your results are heavily personalized based on your past behavior. In an investigation, you definitely don't want a personalized echo chamber. You want the raw truth. That is exactly where privacy engines come in. DuckDuckGo emphasizes privacy and won't track you, though, a quick heads up, it does source a lot of its web results from Bing. Then we have Brave Search, which boasts its very own independent search index alongside strict privacy protections. And then there's Mojique. Mojique is fantastic because it uses its own independent crawler, which means you get completely neutral search results with zero data tracking. These are an absolute must when you need unpersonalized, unbiased intelligence.
The reality is, there's an overwhelming abundance of alternative search options out there. And each one of these specialized engines offers a totally unique lens, allowing you to completely bypass the personalization bubbles of the big tech giants. Diving into these alternatives can uncover hidden data, whether you're working on competitive intelligence or a complex fraud investigation, that the major engines will literally just filter out.
That brings us to Section 4, Global and Regional Engines Bypassing Borders, because sometimes the absolute best tool for the job is a regional translator.
This is where things get really fascinating. If you are investigating a target outside of North America or Western Europe, you simply must use regional engines. Why? Because Western engines often aren't allowed to crawl those spaces, or they just don't prioritize them. Yandex, based out of Russia, is exceptional, not just for Cyrillic language content, but it actually has a highly accurate reverse image search that frequently completely outshines Western alternatives. Meanwhile, Baidu is absolutely essential for investigations involving Chinese organizations, local corporate structures, or public info in China. Western search engines barely even scratch the surface of these vast regional networks.
And we can go even deeper. Local engines matter immensely. Whether we're talking about Neighbor in South Korea, Cesnam in the Czech Republic, Quant in France, Parsec in Iran, or Sapo in Portugal. Why do these matter? Because they prioritize and surface local news, regional business records, and hyperlocal government websites that a global giant like Google might just bury on page 50 or completely miss altogether.
Section 5, Advanced Search Tactics, Slicing Through the Noise. Okay, now we're transitioning from learning what the tools actually are to exactly how you wield them like a professional.
Enter the investigator's absolute primary weapon, Google dorking. Now, I know, the name is a bit silly, but this is incredibly serious business. Dorking is the use of advanced search operators to literally manipulate search algorithms. Instead of just lazily typing a question and hoping the algorithm hands you what you want, you are actively instructing the engine to filter its entire database exactly how you demand. You are taking the steering wheel.
Let's look at the actual operators you'll be using. Use the word site, followed by a colon, to restrict your hunt to just a single domain. You can drop in file type to magically expose hidden PDFs, or maybe even unprotected spreadsheets that contain passwords. In title forces the engine to only show pages where your specific keyword is right there in the title, and in URL searches for words buried deep within the web address itself. Finally, wrapping your terms in quotes demands an exact phrase match, rather than letting the engine take a loose guess. By combining these operators, you can instantly slice through millions of useless pages to pinpoint buried, highly valuable assets.
And this brings us to a really critical piece of advice straight from our professional investigator sources. They say, I highly recommend having an understanding of the manual search process. It will give you much more control than any automated solution. Look, there are plenty of automated tools and flashy AI shortcuts out there today, but true intelligence mastery, that requires understanding manual query building. Because if you over-rely on automation, you completely lose visibility and control over how your intelligence is actually being gathered.
Section 6, Review and Next Steps, Building Your Investigative Strategy. Let's wrap up this foundational toolkit and look ahead at how you're going to actually apply all of this. If you take literally just one thing away from this explainer today, let it be this. Avoid the single most common investigative mistake out there, which is relying on just one search engine. We've seen today that because each engine crawls, indexes, and ranks completely differently, you absolutely must diversify your tactics. You need Google for its depth, Bing for its video search, Mojik for that unbiased neutrality, and Baidu or Yandex for regional reach. You need the whole toolkit to get a complete picture.
So as we wrap things up, I want you to ask yourself, which search engine are you going to deploy to uncover the invisible web in your very next investigation? How are you going to break out of your own filter bubble today? Join us next time as we dive even deeper into the art of advanced search operators. Until then, stay curious and keep searching.